So guys, let us proceed next to the proper uh, topic about the parasites. So each of the parasites, we will be discussing the different parasites and their clinical significance, their infective stages, diagnostic stages, their diseases, and other characteristics that are noteworthy to each of the parasites. And we will also differentiate the parasites which are commonly associated with each other. So for example, Entamoeba histolytica and Entamoeba coli, and Tinea solium and saginata, things like that. And also, we will be having questions along the way, and we will also discuss the treatment and the diagnostic tests used for the diagnosis of the parasites. Okay, so let's go to our first part. So first is the classification of parasites. So parasites can either be protozoans or metazoans. So when you say protozoans, so proto, so one, unicellular organisms. So protozoans can be subdivided into amoeba, ciliates, flagellates, sporozoans, and coccidians, and microspora. So example of amoeba, Entamoeba histolytica, Entamoeba coli, Entamoeba gingivalis, and Dolimax nana. So those are the examples of the amoeba. Next, ciliates. The only example that is pathogenic to human, diba, is, so what is it? Balantidium coli, diba? Next is flagellate. So next are the flagellates. Example of flagellates are Giardia lamblia, Trichomonas vaginalis, Trichomonas hominis. Okay? And examples of blood and tissue flagellates is Trypanosoma, Leishmania, diba? Next is sporozoans. So sporozoans are the Plasmodium species, which cause malaria. So next, coccidians. So example of coccidians is Toxoplasma gondii, Cryptosporidium parvum, Sarcocystis hominis. So yun siya. Okay? So microspora, we will not go deeper into that classification. Okay, so for metazoans, they are the so-called worms, diba? The so-called worms, kasi they are unicellular. So metazoans can be classified into nematodes, cestodes, and trematodes. So nematodes, these are the roundworms, diba? When you, ng mga ascaris, ganyan, di ba? Round sila, trichuris. Cestodes, these are the flatworms, di ba? So flat sila, para silang ribbon-like, flat ang kanilang body structure. Trematodes, these are the flukes, di ba? They are leaf-shaped organisms. Diba, when you see the adult worms of schistosoma, of fasciola, you can see that they resemble like a leaf-shaped pattern, diba? So for nematodes, there are intestinal nematodes, and there are also tissue and blood nematodes. So examples of intestinal nematodes are Ascaris, Trichuris, Enterobius. Those are the intestinal nematodes. Examples of tissue nematodes. Can you give me an example? Diba? Trichinella spiralis. Diba? It resides in the muscles of the humans, of the host. Then blood nematodes. Example, the filariae, diba? The Wuchereria bancrofti, Brugia malayi, they are found in the blood of the human of the human hosts, diba? When you test for filarial parasites for the yung mga Wuchereria, ganyan, diba? You get a blood smear, peripheral blood smear, because they are found in the blood of the hosts. That's why they are called blood nematodes. So nematodes are roundworms. Next is cestodes. So cestodes are flatworms. So cestodes can be intestinal and tissue cestodes. So examples of intestinal cestodes are Tinea, Hymenelepis, they are examples of intestinal cestodes. While tissue cestodes, examples are Echinococcus, diba? It forms a hydatid cyst in the tissues of the hosts. So they are called tissue cestodes. For example, Echinococcus granulosus, Echinococcus multilocularis. So they are the tissue cestodes. Okay? Understand? So next are the trematodes. So trematodes are also called flukes or leaf-shaped organisms. So they can be classified as intestinal trematodes, liver flukes, blood flukes, and lung flukes. Diba? Na ano na natin yan kanina sa common names. So give me examples of intestinal flukes. Diba? Fasciolopsis bruschi, Echinostoma ilocanum, yan yung mga intestinal trematodes. Meanwhile, the liver trematodes or liver flukes, examples are Clonorchis sinensis. So other name for Clonorchis sinensis is Oriental or Chinese liver fluke, diba? Fasciola hepatica. So the other name for Fasciola hepatica is sheep liver fluke or temperate liver fluke. So in their names, makikita mo na kung anong subdivision siya or anong subclassification siya of trematodes. Next are blood trematodes. So ito very easy to memorize. So blood trematodes are the schistosoma species. So there's 3 schistosoma species. For example, Schistosoma japonicum, Schistosoma hematobium, Schistosoma mansoni, they are the blood flukes. Okay? Next is the lung fluke. The only lung fluke is Paragonimus westermani. So diba, it causes a pulmonary TB-like infection. Okay? So protozoans, amoeba, ciliates, flagellates, sporozoans, and microspora. Then metazoans, which are the worms, so as they call. Nematodes, cestodes, and trematodes. Nematodes are the roundworms, cestodes are the flatworms, and trematodes are the flukes. Okay? So next. So first, we will go on to the protozoans. So sa lahat ng mga parasites, let us start with the protozoans. So the protozoans, they're actually very difficult to learn kasi, di ba, parang ang dami-dami nila tapos very heterogeneous sila. Different ang kanilang mga characteristics sa isa't isa. Not like nematodes na na may general characteristics sila na ganito, ang cestos, ganito silang lahat, trematose, ganito sila. So protozoans are very complex organisms. So protozoans are unicellular. So in contrast with metazoans or the worms, protozoans are unicellular. So only one cell lang yan sila. But they have their organelles in which will help them in their survival. Kahit one cell lang yan sila, kaya very deadly sila, di ba? Okay. Next is provided with a nucleus or nuclei. So this will be ground for the classification nila, di ba, later. Then cytoplasm, membranes, and organelles. So this divides through, protozoans divide through binary fission. So they do not have sexual reproduction kasi diba unicellular lang ba sila. So they only multiply through binary fission. Then they contain vacuoles for storage and transport. So, di ba, unicellular lang sila. So, where will they store their food? So, they have their vacuoles, their glycogen vacuoles, their granules for their storage and transport of their nutrients. Okay? So, there are a lot of locomotory apparatuses. So, examples of locomotory apparatuses are pseudopodia, so pseudopods, cilia, and flagella. So pseudopodia, cilia, and flagella. So pseudopodia, these are the sa amoeba. Diba, ang mga amoeba, wala talaga silang cilia and flagella. They only use their pseudopods, yung parang mga extensions ng kanilang cytoplasms for them to move. Okay? Then cilia, these are the small locomotory apparatuses found in Balantidium coli. Diba? And flagella, ito yung large na locomotory apparatus. So you know already what are cilia and flagella, diba? So next, what do you call the infective or non-feeding stage, relatively resistant to environmental changes, non-motile, and found in formed stools? So infective and non-feeding stage. So siya yung mostly naga-infect sa humans. So what do you call this? These are called cysts. Diba? Infective siya. Siya ang start ng infection in humans and relatively resistant to environmental changes. So most of the cysts will persist even though mga mainit masyado, there is a high salt content, so hindi siya madaling mamatay. Then non-motile, so it does not move, and it is found in formed stools. So cysts are found in formed stools. So it will be different to the next stage. So the next stage is the vegetative stage, less resistant, motile, found in fluid or watery sample, and destroyed by iodine. So what do you call this stage? So this stage is called the trophozoid. So diba, you contrast the two stages. So trophozoid is the vegetative stage. Cyst is the infective or non-feeding stage. The trophozoid is less resistant. So mas madali siyang mamatay, diba? That's why it needs the nutrients of our body for it to live. The cysts are relatively resistant to environmental changes. The trophozoids are motile. Cysts are non-motile. Then trophozoids are mostly found in fluid or watery sample or mga diarrheic sample. Then cysts are found in firm stools. So when you are asked a question, there is a formed stool pass in your laboratory. So what do you expect to see more? Cysts or trophozoid? Diba? Since it is formed stool, so you will say na most likely, it does not mean that it is definitive. The cyst lang talaga ang nakikita mo. But it is most likely na cyst ang makikita mo na stages sa form stools. Okay? And trophozoites are destroyed by iodine. Kasi 'di ba, when you put the iodine, kasi 'di ba sa dalawang samples mo for the wet mount and the iodine, you can only see cysts in the iodine stain kasi trophozoites are destroyed by iodine. So, okay? So next, trophozoite to cyst. What do you call the transformation of the trophozoite to a cyst? It happens in the large intestine. So trophozoite to cyst, it is encystation. Encystation. So it becomes a cyst from the trophozoite. So it happens in the large intestine. So kabaliktaran, cyst to trophozoite and happens in the small intestine, it is called excistation. So why do you think the cyst becomes a trophozoite in the small intestine? Kasi 'di ba, the small intestine has the largest amount of nutrients that are found in our body. Then the trophozoite is the vegetative stage, di ba? So the cyst becomes a trophozoite in the small intestine. Okay? Okay. So you can also put there that the unit that performs the vital function in the protozoa are the protoplasm. So the protoplasm is the unit that performs the vital function. Okay? So additional notes. So what is the kingdom of the protozoans? So its kingdom is protozoa. Kingdom Kingdom Protista. Okay, so for the protozoans, they are under the kingdom Protista. So protozoans are under the kingdom Protista. But they are classified according to their locomotory apparatus. So their phyla are according to their locomotory organelle. So there are 4 phyla under kingdom Protista: Sarcomastigophora, Apicomplexa, Ciliophora, and Microspora. Okay? So again, Sarcomastigophora, Apicomplexa, Ciliophora, and Microspora. So for Sarcomastigophora, there are 2 subphyla. So subphylum Mastigophora and subphylum Sarcodina. So for subphylum Mastigophora, it involves the flagellates. So pag flagellates, Mastigophora. But for subphylum Sarcodina, there is the classification under Sarcodina. The parasites or the protozoans are called amoeba. Okay, amoeba. So for Mastigophora, what is used is the flagellum. But for Sarcodina, the pseudopodia. Because diba, amoeba have pseudopodia. Amoebae have pseudopodia. Okay, so for phylum Apicomplexa, they have the complex locomotory apparatus. So there is the mnemonic PPBCC for Apicomplexans. So PPBCC stands for, so write it down, P Plasmodium, T Toxoplasma, B Babesia, C